Welcome back. So looking at those New Year celebrations as we enter a new decade, depending on which you prefer, a new year or a new decade. Let's get a feel of what some Nigerians are looking forward to this year.
It's the beginning of a new decade. A decade Nigerians are expecting will bring about a change in different areas of the economy. Some of the issues many hope will really be dealt with by the government at all levels this new year are insecurity and social welfare of citizens.
We cannot travel how we want it. Going to any other part, we have agitating fears in our heart. Even asking our children to come and visit us is fear.
Some seek implementation of the minimum wage in what is being paid to pensioners.
The implementation of this minimum wage should be extended to retirees, not just workers alone. These workers are going to retire one day. And mind you, in the past, close to 144% has never been implemented. There are people who still receive less than 1,500 naira per month as pension.
And there's the issue of the border closure, a policy some believe should continue this year.
The issue of border closure, I think is a welcome idea to me personally, because it's yielding fruits now. They should sustain it, and after realizing their objective for it, they can now open it to.
Citizens are also demanding more inclusion of youths in governance.
Our expectations from both the federal and the state government is for both governments to create the enabling environment for Nigerians to establish and explore their potentials so that collectively it can lead to development.
And a challenge to the economic team.
The federal government has a new economic team, so I expect them to work hand in glove with the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance, so that our economy can go up and people can live a better life. Aside that, the citizens should also be responsible.
These are just some of the issues Nigerians want state and federal governments and even the government at the grassroots to look into as the new year begins, so citizens can look forward to a brand new decade which starts in this part of the world today.
Outside Nigeria, in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has pledged to work with fellow African leaders to forge ahead with the Continental Free Trade Area as he takes over the chairmanship of the African Union this January. In his New Year message to citizens, he reminded them of the challenges that are still ahead, alongside efforts to fix the country. Our Johannesburg Bureau Chief Betty Dibia reports.
Well, I really hope that it will be a better year, not just for us in South Africa and Nigeria, but for Africa as a whole.
May God bless us all, keep us, protect us, and make 2020 just a year of abundant blessings and a closer walk with God.
Make sure that you don't eat the food and throw it in the bin because somebody out there doesn't have the food. So, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, that's what we'll say in South Africa.
The new year has already recorded some not so positive incidents in South Africa, from a drive-by shooting that claimed the lives of 2 New Year revelers in Johannesburg to multiple fatalities on the highways. But President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his New Year message to the nation, reminded everyone of the highs and lows of 2019, as well as the positives that can be achieved collectively in 2020.
We know only too well the enormity of the challenges that confront us. But we are united in the knowledge that we have the means and the determination to overcome them. Let us each play our part, for upon the conduct of each depends the fate of all. By working together towards the South Africa that we all want, sparing neither strength nor courage, we will progress and we will succeed.
2019 was no doubt a taxing year for diplomatic relations between Nigeria and South Africa. The storm was weathered, and Nigeria's High Commissioner to South Africa, Ambassador Kabir Bala, outlined some of the steps that will be taken to improve relations even more.
One of them is to reactivate the Nigeria-South Africa consular consultation. And I have had a call from the Department of International Relations here that they will want to see us reactivating that in the first quarter of 2020.
And as South Africa takes over the chairmanship of the African Union in 2020, Ambassador Bala also hopes that more massive enlightenment will be taken to every African anywhere in the world to carry everyone along for maximum impact. And while we look forward to the fulfillment of everyone's hopes and aspirations this year, we'll join to wish you a Happy New Year. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, says young people are the world's greatest source of hope. The UN chief in his New Year's message focused on climate change and said the world needs young people to keep speaking out, applying pressure and pushing boundaries to have us protect our planet and improve the lives of its people.
From here at United Nations, I join you in welcoming the new year. We enter 2020 with uncertainty and insecurity all around. Persistent inequality and rising hatred, a warring world and a warming planet. Climate change is not only a long-term problem, but a clear and present danger. And we cannot afford to be the generation that fiddled while the planet burned. But there is also hope. This year, my New Year's message is to the greatest source of that hope, the world's young people. From climate action to gender equality to social justice and human rights, your generation is on the front lines and in the headlines. I'm inspired by your passion and determination. You are rightly demanding a role in shaping the future, and I am with you. The United Nations stands with you and belongs to you. 2020 marks the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. We are launching a decade of action for the Sustainable Development Goals, our blueprint for a fair globalization. This year, the world needs young people to keep speaking out, keep thinking big, keep pushing boundaries, and keep up the pressure. I wish you peace and happiness in 2020. Thank you.
Away from the New Year messages, 8 people at least have been killed by bushfires in Australia since Monday, though 2 others remain unaccounted for. More than 200 homes have also been destroyed since the fires neared the coast this week. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening from the Channels newsroom here in London. Bushfires have killed at least 8 people in southeastern Australia since Monday, with 2 others remaining unaccounted for. The latest fires, which raced towards the coast this week, have also destroyed more than 200 homes. 7 people have been confirmed dead in New South Wales and 1 in Victoria. Conditions have eased slightly, and a major road that was closed in Victoria was reopened for 2 hours on Wednesday to allow people to leave. But many people remain in fire-hit areas. The deaths bring the total fire-related fatalities across Australia this season to at least 18, with warnings this could rise further. Aerial footage on Wednesday showed burnt-out properties in Victoria and New South Wales, where whole suburban streets appeared to be decimated.
I stayed in Fort, yeah, but I'd say to anybody, don't stay, just go. No, don't stay, just go. Just get out and go. Just, all you do is put your life at risk. There's no need to, just go. Just get out and go.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has said he is ending the suspension of nuclear and long-range missile tests put in place during talks with the US. Mr. Kim also said his country would soon introduce a new strategic weapon, but he left a door open for dialogue and said the scope of any testing would depend on the US's attitude. The momentum of the past few years has stalled as Washington refuses to lift sanctions until Pyongyang fully abandons its nuclear program. The North conducted several smaller weapons tests late in 2019 in what was seen as an attempt to pressure the US into making concessions. US President Donald Trump has threatened Iran after blaming it for an attack on the US embassy in Iraq. The compound in Baghdad was attacked by demonstrators furious over the deaths of militia members in US airstrikes. Mr. Trump tweeted that Iran will pay a very big price for any damage or loss of life. This is not a warning, it is a threat, he said. But Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, responded by saying the US can't do a damn thing. Demonstrators regrouped outside the US embassy on Wednesday. Reports said at least one Iraqi militia had ordered its supporters to leave the area. Despite earlier threatening to retaliate against the country, Donald Trump said he does not want or foresee war with Iran.
I don't think that would be a good idea for Iran. It wouldn't last very long. Do I want to? No. I want to have peace. I like peace. And Iran should want peace more than anybody. So I don't see that happening. No, I don't think Iran would want that to happen. It would go very quickly.
Hong Kong's protesters have welcomed in a new decade via a New Year's Day rally with tens of thousands of people joining a pro-democracy march. Though the gathering was largely peaceful, violence broke out in some areas with police firing tear gas. On New Year's Eve, demonstrators had formed human chains that stretched for miles down busy shopping streets. More than 6 months after the protest began, they gathered for midnight countdowns by Victoria Harbour. Police used water cannon to clear Nathan Road in Mong Kok and fired tear gas and rubber bullets. The French hardline union CGT has called for more strikes in France this month after President Emmanuel Macron pledged to push through an overhaul of the pension system. It follows weeks of nationwide strikes by trade unions. Mr. Macron said in a traditional New Year's Eve address on Tuesday that he expected his government to quickly find a compromise with unions on the reforms. Unions are trying to force the former investment banker to abandon his overhaul of France's pension system, with nationwide strikes since December the 5th that have crippled public transport. Pope Francis had to pull himself away from a woman in a crowd in St. Peter's Square on Tuesday after she had grabbed his hand and refused to let go. Pope Francis was walking through the square and greeting pilgrims on his way to see the large nativity scene. After reaching out to touch a child, the Pope turned away from the crowd only for a nearby woman to seize his hand and pull her towards him. However, on Wednesday, he apologised for being abrupt the previous day with a pilgrim in St. Peter's Square. And finally, the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah set 2 Guinness World Records for fireworks displays on Wednesday. The first record was for the most unmanned aerial vehicles for launching fireworks simultaneously, and the second record for the longest fireworks waterfall. The 2020 New Year's Eve Gala included 13 minutes of fireworks displays. The second title for the longest fireworks waterfall spanned a length of 3,788 metres, beating a previous record held in Fukuoka in Japan. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thanks, Simon. Still ahead on the news at 10. The Nigeria Football Federation targets qualifying for major international tournaments in 2020. We'll have more in sports news. Stay with us.